Resident Evil is the game that created the survival horror genre. And there was a time when these games were incredibly popular. You have Alone in the Dark, Silent Hill, Resident Evil itself, and many other which cemented a great experience for people that like horror. But unfortunately, the trend of the video game industry is of having corporations becoming incredibly bloated. Millions of dollars are being spent onto marketing rather than game development. DLC and loot boxes and other ways to milk the consumer of every single penny are being implemented. And all of these don't really work well with the survival horror genre. Or do they? Because you see, I've played the last Resident Evil last night, the Resident Evil Village, and I gotta say, it's a great game, but I'm very disappointed. And what I mean by this is that it is a great game, but it's not Resident Evil. It would be a great spin off to the Resident Evil series. It would be a nice call of Resident Evil, because the game just throws enemies after enemies at you, especially in the beginning part of the game. And it's very similar to how Resident Evil 4 was. In fact, that's what they're going for. But unfortunately, I have the same opinion about Resident Evil 4. It's not really Resident Evil. It should have been a great spin-off to the series. And people who like horror, like myself, people who like the survival genre that Resident Evil was famous for creating, don't have a place anymore. We just don't have the type of games that we used to like. And in this interview, it's actually explained why that is. The creator says that they received feedback that Resident Evil 7 was too scary to play. And in one regards, that's exactly what they were striving for, so it's a huge compliment for them. But at the same time, they didn't meet the sales expectations. They only sold 3.8 million copies, and Capcom wanted them to sell around 4 million. So because of that, they got back to the drawing board and they made the game more comfortable for people to play, so that players aren't in constant fear or whatever. And you get Call of Resident Evil, which is focused a lot more on weapons and shooting and all that nonsense. And at first, it might seem like they have a good point, assuming that right now there's no more artists in the gaming industry. Like, people aren't focused on making works of art. They're focused on making junk food. They're focused on making the McDonald's, because the McDonald's makes money. The expensive restaurant that you take your lovely girlfriend on your anniversary night, that's not mainstream. That doesn't make a lot of money. So everyone needs to focus on junk food. Everyone needs to focus on making a product that everyone would consume. So I guess if you have that mindset, it might make sense. Like, okay, horror isn't very popular. A lot of people get alienated by very scary games. But then when you look at Resident Evil 2 Remake, it sold 7.8 million copies. And Resident Evil 2 Remake, at least in my opinion, it's a lot more scarier than Resident Evil 7. So why is it? And I think the reason on why Resident Evil 2 outsold Resident Evil 7 is because it's a better game, fundamentally. I mean, I have not seen zombies done so well in any video game ever. The zombies, they stumble over ledges. For example, if you're on a flight of stairs and you go down really fast, the zombie on top of the stairs isn't going to try to walk around. He's just going to walk forward and just fall down over the balcony. That's a really nice touch. If you shoot a zombie in the leg, eventually the leg breaks and the zombie starts crawling around. Or you can shoot him in the hand and his arm breaks. All these little cool additions just massively raise the bar when it comes to the survival genre. And it managed to create Resident Evil an excellent experience. And then when you add Mr. X in the mix, who you can constantly hear walking around the police station while you're trying to hide. And by the way, like, that part of the game frustrated a lot of people. A lot of people didn't like that you can't kill Mr. X. A lot of people didn't like that, oh, I gotta go to this room, but he's there, so now I have to wait. But you know what? Because the game was really that great, and the game was so well done, a lot of people just took and persevered. Like, they put up with the inconvenience just because the game was really that great. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed it. A lot of people enjoyed it. The sales show it improved on everything that the survival horror got wrong in the past. And to hear now that Resident Evil 8 is going to go back to the call of Resident Evil is very disheartening and disappointing. Especially that when it comes to the remake, if the leaks are true, instead of remaking Resident Evil Code Veronica, they're going to remake Resident Evil 4, which, by the way, is quite a recent game. It doesn't really need improvement. It already had a graphics overhaul for the PC. You can pick up Resident Evil 4 right now and you're going to get the same level of enjoyment that you got back then. It's not... I don't know. It's very disappointing, is what it is. And I guess it's the new way of thinking. Like, if you read some of the video gaming press, especially the outlets dedicated for video games creators, they're saying that people should move away from the idea of genre. Because they don't want games that focus on a specific genre, okay? Like, they don't want survival horror games anymore. They don't want first-person shooters anymore. What they want is Assassin's Creed type of video games that don't really have a genre. I mean, in Assassin's Creed, you get a skill tree, maybe you get like some dialogue options, you know, it's got like these RPG elements, but it's also got like this interesting customization elements. And it's not, you know, like what Assassin's Creed used to be, which the first one did very right, a stealth game, where you walked around an ancient city, you planned your assassination, you took out the target, and then you had to run away from the guards in order to blend back into the crowd. That was what Assassin's Creed was about. And by the way, like the first one, for its time, managed to sell quite a bit. Like it was in the top of the sales charts for those years. And they moved away from that. They moved away from that in order to add more and more things. Now, you get to see this being done with the new Resident Evil. Like, why the fuck does it have a crafting system? What's the point in having a crafting system in a linear game? I never understand this. Like, it's more annoying than anything. Even, like, and it's not even a crafting system that's done smart. I mean, I hate to say it, but I need to give credit where credit is due. The Last of Us 2 actually had a smart crafting system for a linear game. For example, you manage to find a bottle of alcohol. You can either use that in order to create a Molotov cocktail, or you can use that in order to create a health potion. Or, you know, like disinfectant or whatever they call it. And it makes the choice, right? If you play on the last level of difficulty, these choices matter. Like, do you want more damage or do you want more survivability? It kind of makes sense, right? So it was a good crafting system, which I don't see in this Resident Evil. I don't, but at the end of the day, again, like, I don't understand the point of a crafting system in a linear game at all. There is no point to it. Just give the damn item to the player. So there's that, you know, and you get to see like the weapon upgrade system. There's no need for that in a horror genre. But like, this is the direction that all of the games are going. And it's a little bit upsetting, gotta say. I would rather play a game that focuses on one thing and gets 3 of those things perfectly right than to play a game that focuses on 20 things and gets none of them right. So yeah, I guess like the game development world is becoming very stale, very repetitive. Like, you're going to get only generic mambo jumbo from now on. I'm going to talk about it in my next video why I think that this is the case. But most unfortunately, because all the games are going to focus on getting everything done, that they're going to kill off some of the genres that we used to like. One of them is the survival horror, and the other one is the stealth genre. If you think about it, like most stealth games, ever since Dishonored came along, they're not really stealth games, are they? I mean, even Assassin's Creed, I wouldn't call it a stealth game anymore. They're games like that give you the opportunity of one-shotting an enemy until you sound off the alarm, and then you go into Call of Duty-like combat. Very similar to how Tomb Raider is like. Especially like in Tomb Raider, you go through the Amazon jungle and you can use mod to camouflage yourself and whatnot. Similar to Last of Us. Like when you go into an enemy encampment, no one knows you're there. So you can start picking off soldiers with headshots with an arrow. But the moment they discover you, you're fairly well equipped in order to deal with the enemy hordes that are just coming at you. And you just go full Call of Duty on mode. And, you know, like, I don't like that. I prefer the type of stealth that you get to find in games like Thief. I prefer the type of stealth that you found in games like Splinter Cell before that became Call of Duty. There are some niche genres that unfortunately, I guess, aren't as profitable. And because of that, corporations are moving away from them. But I don't think they're not profitable. I think that they could be profitable if corporations actually focused on what makes the game great and polishes them, bringing them all the way to the Resident Evil 2 standard, and then you'd get profitability. I mean, if you think about it, MOBA games like Dota and League of Legends wouldn't make sense today. Very difficult learning curve, very difficult to get into, very hostile communities, and yet these games, despite all that, manage to appeal huge audiences to the point where for a couple of years they were the most popular games in the world. But that's what, you know, what happens when you actually try to focus on the positive aspects of what makes a game great. You try to polish the good things rather than, you know, like, I don't know, go into a MOBA and try to add other elements from other games to it just for the sake of it. But hey, let me know what you guys think. And I'll see you over in This Week in Stupid tomorrow. I'll also be live streaming Resident Evil 8 later on tonight. So tune in for that if you want to see me suffer. And I'll be seeing you in the comment section. Take care.